Raheem Kassam, you came to Los Angeles and spoke before the American Freedom Alliance. You encountered children, offspring of immigrants from Pakistan and Sudan, people who came and who may have been vetted somehow in their foreign countries, but their children somehow, even as teenagers and young adults in their 20s in university, became radicalized. Is this a real phenomenon?
Yeah, it was a massive phenomenon, and it was certainly huge. Immediately after 9/11, you started to see a lot of younger Muslims becoming extremely sympathetic to radical Islam, extremely sympathetic to the teachings of, what were really hate preachers, we would call them, right? And these were often Saudi-funded, sometimes Turkey, sometimes Iranian-funded preachers. Qatari, not so much at the time, but that is happening more and more nowadays. But they were watching videos of Anwar al-Awlaki on TV getting radicalized. People will remember, I hope people will remember, the underpants bomber and the shoe bomber and all of those guys. I mean, they went through the same radicalization protocols, the same steps. And immediately after 9/11, the government took it quite seriously. We had 7/7 bombings in London, of course, as well. But as time progressed, the institutions that were built to defeat the proliferation of radical Islamic extremism and the proliferation of pro-terrorism were usurped and were actually turned on the British public themselves. Suddenly it wasn't a problem if you were, pro-jihad, but it was a problem if you were a Christian, or it was a problem if you were, anti-trans stuff being taught in schools. And the whole thing shifted in the sort of early 2010, 2012 period of time. It really wasn't until kind of a mid and post-Brexit world that people started to wake up and go, hold on a minute, how's my government been turned against me like this? And how do we get back to a kind of a pre-9/11 way of dealing with our liberties as Brits?
So is there in fact a risk in bringing in people from Islamic countries that there's enough radicalism here in the States that Jews and Zionists have something to be concerned about, that there's a bigotry that comes from the Middle East and Pakistan?
Yeah, massively. Look, I mean, I was very young when I first got to grips with, what is Israel and what does it mean? Why does it exist? And understanding those questions, and got to visit Israel twice myself, and sort of tried to bring back this understanding as somebody who was raised in Islam, who was brought up in West London, who encountered all of this anti-Semitism, which is rife across Europe, which is rife across the United Kingdom. Trying to impart that upon my peers was almost kind of a no-go zone of the mind. That was a question that you're not really allowed to think about, talk about, them bad, right? And that bad. Zionism is a dirty word in the United Kingdom, and that has always been really, really prominent, I think, in the mass immigrant community. It is almost a cultural affectation there now to be anti-Semitic, right? I grew up around these people. I went to college with these people. I understand that they coalesce around issues like that. And at one point in time, we got to this inflection point where Islam was attracting more people than Christianity, than Judaism, than Hinduism, than anything as a philosophy, as a religion, but as a political ideology as well. And the answer to the question of why that happened was because Islam was, and still is to this day, much more forthright